Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kerbal space program, and today we're going to head for the moon. But the first thing to do is we need to build a moon rocket. You might have seen other videos where people go to the moon. You need a pretty big rocket and a lot of fuel. Now, I have done this before, kind of. I've tried numerous different designs, and I think I found one that mostly works, but I'm going to try a bit of a mishmash of previous designs at the moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the standard thing with the decoupler and the parachute, and add a simple SAS module, saves weight, on the final stage, because you don't need much fuel. And I'm going to add a full tank and a half tank, and something I almost forgot, RCS fuel. I know that when you land on the moon, one tank can get you to land on the moon and go back to Kerbin, but it gets a bit tight for fuel sometimes, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just have a little extra fuel just in case. And another thing I'm going to do is, of course, add the all-important lander legs. I think I only need 4 of these. I tried another design. Are they low enough? About there. I have tried another design where, because this is quite a tall rocket really, I have tried another design where I had a couple of half tanks on the side, but there was that ended up with much more fuel than I actually needed, and I ended up with quite a bit of wasted weight really when I was taking off, and I had a bit of trouble getting into orbit and stuff. So this has worked before. It looks a little tall, but no worries. And I'm just going to add a little tiny engine. You need a small engine when you're using lander legs anyway, not just because if you're landing on the moon, but because of the lander legs. When they open, they go to about here, and they will only go below the smallest engine. The larger engines, they won't go below. You can try and use radial decouplers to make them go even lower, but normally that doesn't quite work and isn't very reliable. So anyway, on to the next stage. I'm going to make sure there's plenty of struts. Or is it? No, that was it. Stack decoupler first. Oh, almost forgot. RCS thrusters. We put RCS fuel on. Must not forget the thrusters. Put 4 about there. And, ooh, nuts. Hang on a sec. I'm just going to move these around slightly. There we go. Oh, where's it gone? There it is. Yeah. Just so the RCS thrusters will actually attach. Okay, try and get it. I'm going to try and get it as balanced as possible. The RCS thrusters are to help turn the ship in space, because it's the second stage that will actually get us into orbit around Kerbin, and then into orbit around the moon, and then most of the way down onto the lunar surface. It's quite you don't need that much fuel once you're once you're in orbit around Kerbin, especially seeing as one single fuel tank will actually get you from the moon back to Kerbin. But these are for assisting the turning of the spaceship, which it will end up quite long when you go to the moon, and also it will help to land this lander, because it will counter any lateral movement, any horizontal movement, quite efficiently. Because I've seen other people only put the top ones on, and it kind of rocks the ship over, and then you end up boosting to the wrong side, and it's not very efficient. I think Kurt J. Mack did that once, and he landed kind of safely, apart from the fact that an engine fell off and a couple of lander legs exploded and it almost went horribly wrong. I'm not sure whether he's done the episode or he comes back off the surface yet. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. A traditional stack decoupler and 3 tanks of fuel, I think, will do it. So I think it's about half a tank of fuel to get into orbit, 1.5 tanks to get to the moon and start landing, and then you've got the last tank of fuel to do most of the descending. This is the design that has worked for me anyway. And a thrust vectoring engine. And I'm also going to put struts around here as well, just for strength. Oops. I hate struts. No, I'm doing that backwards. Back there. Come on. Attach. Oh gosh. Why won't you attach? Come on. Hey, there we go. Got there in the end. Okay. That's thus our second stage. Our third stage, I did have an alternate design for this, which was for the second stage. I'd actually use a tricoupler with 3 engines and everything else. Shall I try the tried and tested design, or shall I try a new one? New designs are always fun. Let's do that. I'll use a tricoupler. There we go. And put that to 3. Oops, don't want half tanks. Oh, let's see, how much weight was the previous one? It was about the same number of fuel tanks, so this should work with 3 tanks here. More thrust vectoring engines. It won't have as much thrust, but it'll have just as much fuel. So that should work. It will make it heavier when turning, though. So I'll be a little bit wary. Struts to hold it together. Now, the previous design, I just used a single stack decoupler and then a tricoupler, and then engines on the side, so I'd end up with a total of 6 engines. But for this one, I'm going to have to use radial decouplers here and hold it, try and hold it all together with struts. Although I did once try quite a radical design, 3 fuel tanks, quite a radical design where I had a similar sort of setup, but the problem was when I decoupled, because of the first stage got me so high and so fast, when I decoupled it didn't actually drop very far before I started the next engines. And it actually blew the rest of it blew that part of the ship up, which just caused a chain reaction and blew the entire rocket up. So what I am, yes, that was it. That was what I was trying to remember. With the previous design, I think I used 2.5 tanks on the side boosters, because it had 1 down the center and then 2 side boosters, and then I used 2.5 fuel tanks on the side boosters and 3 in the middle. Hang on a sec, and I've forgotten an advanced SAS unit. Because with such a large, heavy rocket, you do need fins on it. And that got me pretty high. But the first stage actually got me higher than I'd like, because it got me because I like the first stage because it's so uncontrollable on the first stage. I like it to be able to get me to the point where I have to start tilting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to only have 2.5 tanks of fuel here, and kind of hope that these fuel tanks these will supply enough fuel, because they should do. I hope. So it'll get a little hairy if it doesn't. Or should I put some half tanks around here? Because if I do that, that might end up being too heavy, etc. Or I could put some extra tanks, half tanks around here that I can jettison at any time, if necessary, just as a safety precaution. And then if I actually did need them, yeah, that's a good idea actually, I'll do that. So if I actually did need them in the long run, I could then integrate them into the second stage, and if I didn't need them, then I could just jettison them straight away and not bother having them in the design. That's a good plan. So I'm going to put them up here, with fuel lines. Now I think with fuel lines you don't actually have to connect the fuel up to each of the different tanks. I thought that normally you'd have to connect this to that, and then to that, and then to that. But I think you can just connect the top of one to the top of a stack of more, because when you've got a stack of fuel tanks, they act as one. So I should only need to do that, really. Yeah, okay, that's my safety measure, just to be sure. And now I know that 3 of even the most powerful engines will not get this entire rocket off the ground. And also that looks horrible. They look horrible. No, I'm not gonna bother with them actually. Nah. Hang on. I used 3 fuel tanks on this stage, and then it was a total of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fuel tanks on this stage. So if I'm missing 1.5 fuel tanks here, and I've got 9 on this one, then there's half a tank of fuel missing, which means that this stage might get a little hairy. Okay, I'm gonna be safe and do what I did before and just put a full tank here. Very indecisive. Okay. Struts, you don't need many struts, but because of it's so unsupported on the top as well, I'm gonna put them up here. Though if there's a horrible snapping noise when you launch it, then that's the time to add more. I'll put 3 on for good measure, and then I'm just going to connect another load of fuel tanks on here, slightly lower, just because it looks good. Literally just straight on, and then just secure them with struts, with the LVT-30 engines, the most powerful, but they're not thrust vectoring. So to help to counter that, and I've noticed this before, you do need winglets just to help. The advanced SAS will do the rest, just to secure them in place a little, and then just struts around here. Yep. Yeah, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. That should not go anywhere. But I mean, the engine shouldn't go anywhere. The rocket, I hope, goes somewhere. And with the hay, I'll put some struts on here as well. That's a good-looking rocket. That's probably the most faithful to real-life looking rocket I've ever made, apart from the orbiter, because of the last design kind of had these 2 engines sticking out on the side and a really thin section in the middle, and it didn't look very good. That is a standard engine stack I use at the first stage of any heavy rocket, just because it works so well. I know Kurt J-Mac's Farlander 9 design has more engines, but it's quite an odd triangular shape. Wow. Ah, yes. I'm going to name it the Munshot rocket, because that's the name of a quite cool 8-bit track by Kitsune Squared, who is a persona of someone else I can't remember the name of. Someone, Renard. Not Metal Renard. Actually, I should save that as Munshot rocket, just because it's the Kerbal space program. There we go. And I've got 2. Darn it. I just delete one. Yeah. Got enough struts? Yep. I've turned the sound down slightly because I noticed it was a little loud in the last episode. And I'm not wearing my headphones, so I don't know whether anything snapped. Stop lagging. Whoa. SAS. There we go. You can see the winglets going. Actually, that's something snapped because it's wobbling quite alarmingly. Actually, I'm checking the vent log. That's HUD off. That's F3. That's the one. Nope. They haven't moved and they've already encountered 1.3G. Well, they're always going to encounter G, so because they're on Kerbal. Okay. Oh yeah, you've got Bill, Jeb and Bob back that we rescued last episode. That is a good-looking rocket. I don't know how many times I'm going to end up saying that. I just hope it lifts off the ground actually, because it's a little heavier than the last one. Oh, throttle up. Yeah, Kitsune Squared, by the way, is the one who made Avastras as well, or Avastras, which is like an internet meme for ages. So, but I'm not going to do an advanced Avastra Munshot rocket or anything with this clip. Anyway, 3, 2, 1. Oh gosh, it's not lifting off the ground. I'm going to let it burn a little fuel before I completely... Wah! Stabilize, stabilize. Yeah, it was only a fraction heavy. Whoa, that was an odd path. It is actually wobbling around quite alarmingly. Might need more SAS or winglets. Yeah, I'm going backwards slightly. That's not good, and I'm... oh no, I think I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, we're on our way. Bill, Jeb and Bob, you might be the first Kerbal to land, well, not the first, but first in this particular save game, to land on the surface of the moon. Is it up? Hey, there we go, there's your destination. Though we're not going to be going there straight away, we're accelerating pretty slowly, actually. That is an awesome rocket. It's probably the least mad-looking multi-stage moon rocket I've ever seen. Quite proud of that. Anyway. oh, that's just the landing lights. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the staging's great, isn't it? Move that one there. Move that over there. Okay. Yeah, we want the all the stages all the engines to fire directly after their stages of... actually, no, we don't. Not on this stage. While we're descending onto the lunar surface, we do anyway. No, I don't want it to do that on this stage, though. Oh crap! No, I've got rid of the stage, though. This might be a little hairy. Because last time I did this, the engines exploded. Or the entire rocket exploded. Actually, there was one time when I tried it again and the rocket exploded, but it exploded kind of hitting the top of the capsule here. So it sort of went bang, 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 and all the components were hitting it and sort of flying up and then exploding, flying up and then exploding, and pushing the last ones, or the highest ones, into it. But it never blew the capsule up, which I think is quite impressive that I managed to destroy the entire rocket and still survive. Not directly though. I didn't actually make that happen, but still, it's quite impressive that it happened. We're going pretty fast now. This is good. On our last tanks of fuel, we are very, very, very high, though very, very, very slow. Yeah, that was the disadvantage of using these tri-couplers because of the weight imbalance when you're trying to turn that way. It constantly tries to roll the ship over. Oh, there we go. Engines off. Oh, yes. Perfect. Whoa! It destroyed the struts, though. And we're still going up. Whoops! Better tip over, tip over, tip over, tip over. I shouldn't forget to do that. Whoops. Yes. Yeah, this is really good. Because we've got 3 engines helping. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to just stay at this angle. Just so we gain some altitude as well. Yep, you can see the thrust vectoring engine wobbling the flame around it. Because we're now entirely reliant on the engines. But this is why sometimes you'll only want one thrust vectoring engine when you're in the atmosphere. Because of when you've got loads of them, they all go in the same direction, so you end up with this, it constantly trying to counter its own wobble, and it makes the entire ship wobble, which can actually sometimes snap bits of it off. You can see it really wobbling around there, as those are rocking away, and sometimes it can snap the ship apart, so you don't want that. Whoa, better check that. I only want to get up to 150 because of it. It doesn't waste much fuel, and it means we can okay, and it means we can still. I can't turn. This is why I've got the RCS on board. But it also means that we can time warp to a reasonable speed. Yeah, we've got plenty of RCS fuel. We don't need much. Because when we've landed on the lunar surface, we only didn't need the SAS. Really, not the RCS. Okay, just gonna wait until we're just almost up to the apoapsis. There we go. I thought I'd turn the SAS off then. Okay, and SAS on. Boost. SAS off. Oh gosh, this is going to be a little hairy, but we're accelerating really, really fast, so we're going to start descending slightly. Hey, smiley face. What are those bits? Oh yeah, the end of the carrying. Oh, there's 2 parachute casings. I hate those parachutes, because the parachutes actually survived in the geostationary orbit thing. The parachutes actually survived. They were supposed to explode. I don't think I jettisoned them quickly enough. Smug face. There we go. We're almost up to speed now. Need to get to around 2,000. How much fuel am I burning? Ooh, I nearly fuel down. Fuel down? Fuel tank down. How high are we? We're ascending pretty fast. You don't need a perfectly circular orbit. Pardon me. You don't need a perfectly circular orbit when you're doing a moon mission like this, because you're not going to stay in orbit for long. And that is by no means a perfectly circular orbit. I'm not going to bother adjusting that at all. So how many fuel? Oh gosh, hang on a sec. These are our oh nuts! These are our last 3 tanks of fuel. Ouch. Okay. I'm just gonna. This might be a tiny bit hairy. What's the lowest point? Okay, this might take a while to get to the periapsis. Then we've got to do an orbit, and then we'll boost when the moon starts rising, because we're going anti-clockwise. If you're going clockwise around Kerbal, you've got to wait till the moon's set. And then we've got to extend our orbit out to, I think, 12,500,000 kilometers is the magic number to get into a proper orbit around the moon. And then we're not going to bother getting into orbit and then descending. We're just going to go straight for the descent. And then when you take off from the moon, you have to boost to get into a rough orbit around the moon, and then you have to boost when Kerbal rises, or sets, depending on which way around you've gone. We're going up now. Oh, 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 sunrise. Ta-da, lens flare. Nice. Quick screenshot. We're still below, oh no, we're nearly there. 8, 9, boom. There we go. Okay. And now we wait until the moon rises. This should take us almost into the correct position as well. There we go. Moon's risen. That's about right. It says off. Correct that. Pray that we've got enough fuel. This is why I've got the extra half tank. So I've got the extra half tank on the top stage. Boost! Right on the centre line. Go. Because I have a horrible feeling this is only just going to take us into orbit in the moon. On the moon. Though if we really have not got enough fuel, I'm going to have to abort the mission and try again with a different design. Because of course I think I'm using more fuel because it is a heavier rocket than the last design I used. Oh, here we go. Just throttling right down and there, that'll do. Oh, this is hairy. But luckily the moon's gravity is very, very, very weak, so this should be able to take us into a good descent. So I think that because we can take off with just about oh, just fast forward. Going up very, very fast. I think I can take off. Well, I can return from the moon with about 2/3 of a tank of fuel left, depending on the size of the lunar lander, quite comfortably. So, well, not I say comfortably. It's pretty hairy with the fuel, so I might have to rely on some RCS fuel to help me out. I can see the moon's orbiting around as we're going there. It'll look like we haven't quite caught up with the moon because we'll overtake it around here, and then suddenly it'll snap us into an orbit. But yeah, so if we end up using a bit too much fuel, because I want to keep at least a tank of fuel left for that, no less than that really. I'd rather keep as much of the half tank as I can as well. So there we go. Here's to new designs. Here we go. Whoa. There we go. Straight into orbit. That was a good orbit as well, actually. Just going to go to 100. Which way are we going? We're going the wrong way. No, we're not. Oh, yes, we are. It's a little skew with. That's okay. I don't care about where we land or anything. We're just going to go straight for the descent. Well, more or less. RCS on, SAS off. Spin the ship round. We got enough time. We've got plenty of time to do this because we go orbiting pretty slowly. But if we don't do this now, we'll end up missing and end up going back on an odd orbit to Kerbal. Okay. Let's hold it there. Okay. The SAS can take it from here. Boost. I think the lack of fuel can probably be compensated. Ooh, compensated with the fact that we've got 3 engines rather than just 1. So I think it should be okay. That's a pretty good orbit, actually. Okay, we've got a very, very tiny amount of fuel left. Okay, I might have to do an orbit around here to get. Ooh, it's a bit tight. I think it is orbiting into the sun. No, it's going to be going away from the sun pretty soon. So I'll do an orbit around to get to the apoapsis so I can land pretty much square here. Yeah, I'll do that. Oh, wait a minute, I'm going that way. Oh, okay, that's convenient. And stop there. Just going to do a counter burn. I think I'm just going to use the tiny a tiny bit of thrust in the engines just to help me with this. Because it's a thrust vectoring engine, so they help with turning if you've got them on. There we go. Minimal thrust. And I'll get the periapsis to intersect. Literally just intersect with the planet. Fuel. We are very, very close for fuel. Very close. How are we doing? Oh, there we go. Ooh, I think we're going to miss that crater, unfortunately. Because normally you'll end up landing around sort of there. Oh, hang on a sec. No, I'm going the other way. Yeah. Oh, I might get into that one instead. Okay, fine. This might look a little alarming as we head towards the planet here. Whee, the sun. Ooh. Autosave. Okay. I'm going to wait till we're at 50,000 feet. Meters. There. The terrain generator is trying to catch up. And I'm going to start the retro burn. Yeah, no. Turn the SAS off. Actually, I'm going the wrong way. Let's just let my inertia take me round as we slowly descend. Because what I'm going to try and do is keep my speed consistent with my height. So say 500 meters a second, I'd be at 50,000 meters. 100 meters a second, 1,000 meters, etc. No, 10,000. Yeah. Got half the RCS fuel left. I'm not going to use any more, actually. Nearly there. Slow. Stop there. You always want to burn exactly in the opposite direction to where you're going, and I'm just using minimal thrust at the moment. Okay, a little bit more. Just to get it down, so 34, nearly 30,000 meters, so I want this at 300. We're getting very low for fuel there. Keep that consistent there. Come on, we can hold out. No, we're out of fuel. Yeah. Okay. Jettison. Oh gosh, do I have enough fuel? Actually, I might. Because I'm only using a tiny amount of thrust at the moment. Thrust? Yeah. Thrust. Yeah, the little SAS is doing fine here. That will crash land soon. Where are we going to land? Oh, in the crater. That's good. It's a little rocky in there. Just going to keep boosting gradually. Bit by bit. I think we're doing okay for fuel because we're a lot lighter without that second stage, so this might be able to get us down. The extra half tank does really make all the difference. I have a feeling I'm using the whole tank at the moment. Yeah, I'm using that full tank. So I don't want it to get any further than halfway, because if it does, I'm just going to have to abort. always keeping in the opposite direction. It's the most fuel efficient way of doing it. This is going to be very hairy when taking off. Okay, we're almost going straight down actually. Yeah, we're getting there very gradually. Okay, I'll have to throttle up slightly. Though I don't want to because that wastes fuel. We'll just twist round. Oh wait, where? Change to the surface. That's about right. When I get practically vertical, I'm going to use the throttle up slightly. I'm going to use the RCS thrusters to counter any movement. Any lateral movement. Okay, you can practically see the surface. Oh dear. Love a bit more. I'm going to try and keep my speed roughly consistent here. Going to go manual now. Throttle up. Because this is a very slightly heavier craft than normal, 1 tank of fuel is really cutting it fine. Okay, it looks like we're a bit fast at the moment. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten to extend the landing legs. Okay. Hold the speed there. Go vertical. RCS on, landing legs down. There we go. Using the RCS thrusters just to get that in there. And we're looking pretty balanced actually. The RCS thrusters aren't wobbling us around a lot. Okay. I'm just going to throttle down to just speed up slightly. I've got quiet. Pretty sure we can do this. Okay, here we go. The highest mountains on the moon, I think, are about 2,000, or just over 2,000 meters. So I've kind of got to go by eye at the moment because this looks pretty high, even though we're in the middle of a crater. Slight corrections. Okay, we're going a bit fast now. Get our speed down to 10. Here we go. This is it. Sending onto the surface. I think a tank of fuel in total will be enough. controlling the throttle very gently. Okay, I hope that this will slow us down. Shall let us drop a bit more. Very tiny movements of the RCS thrusters are having quite dramatic effects on the oh, here we go, on how much that moves. Here we go. Very near the surface now. I'll turn caps lock on for the RCS thrusters. Oh, I can see the shadow. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Go. Touchdown. Ha 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 ha. We're on the moon. And a slight slope. They need to put a landing radar in for that sort of stuff, though. Look, I was nearly 1,000 feet up there. Oh, we're on the moon. I don't want to turn SOS off just in case we fall over. We are on the moon. We have landed on the surface of the moon. Oh, there's Kerbal. Can I get a good shot of that? No, I can't. It's too far away. That's a shame. All the Kerbals seem pretty content. There's the sun. That's a nice picture. I don't know whether it'll have the fraps thing in there though. Yeah, because you can't see it. Okay. Well, we're on the surface of the moon. We have landed. We are the first people in this save game to get onto the surface of the moon. 11.5 million miles away. I mean, meters away. No. Yes. No. Yeah. I don't know. Yes. Probably. Hang on. Is it? The moon. Yeah. 11.5 million meters away. And unfortunately, I'm going to end this episode here. Notice how the stars have disappeared. Still don't know what that is. I think it's something to do with the glare from the sun or something. But I'm going to leave this episode on that note, and I'll return in the next episode where we see whether we can get back to Kerbal on minimal fuel. Otherwise we might have to launch a rescue attempt. So on that note, I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.